Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to talk about how to get your script ready to sell. Now, this is important because most of the time when people are writing scripts, they're thinking much more about the story. And so when it comes time to sell it, a lot of times there's confusion. And that's okay. I understand. It's natural. It's especially natural if you've never been in this market before. Now, let me just tell you just a little bit about me so you know who's talking with you. I'm a guy who I started out, 20 years ago. If you guys know our history, 20 years ago, I started out interviewing producers, managers, agents, and some actors. And the reason I did that was because there were mysteries in this industry that hadn't been solved by screenwriting teachers. I had taken a bunch of classes. I came into the industry, and almost 50% of what I was told about the market was absolutely wrong. How I was told to pitch didn't work. And when I started talking with producers about it and interviewing them, I found out they wanted to be pitched in a completely different way. Now, since then, we started taking groups to market, and this is with our alumni. We have taken 32 groups to market, each time for 30 days, nonstop marketing. We just had a group finish up. We've already had one deal in there. We had a whole bunch of requests, and we're waiting on the others to see if they love the script and want to move forward. So every time we've ever marketed, we've had somebody make a deal, either get optioned, get a manager, sell a script, or get something produced. We've had multiple people who've had movies made that came from those events. So this is something that we know a lot about. I know how producers respond. I know how they think. And now it's just about you knowing that. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through 4 steps to get your script ready. And these won't be edit the words kind of steps. We'll get to what really matters. We'll talk about how to target producers so that you can get in the doors you want and the doors that it makes sense for your project. We'll talk about what's really possible for you. And then I'll show you a class that's coming up called Getting Scripts to Power Players, which takes you through our entire model. And I've got a couple of special things just for you guys. So here we go. First, pitch first. Now, by the way, most people, when they think, I'm going to get my script ready, first thing they think is edit the words because you've already written a certain amount of drafts. I'm going to say, go to your pitch first before you do your next draft. If you're on draft 7 and you're thinking, all right, I'm going to get it ready to take to market, before you do your draft, create a pitch that can sell. And here's why. This happens a lot. People will write a script. This actually happened to me. They'll write a script. They'll try their pitch and it doesn't work. So they'll change their pitch. Now they'll get script request. And all of a sudden the producer is actually requesting a different script than the one you wrote. So I would much rather do a pitch right now and then do a rewrite to match the pitch. So your pitch, the easiest version is starting with a great title, right? Something that's short. I would say 1 to 4 words maximum. You're better with a 2-word or a 3-word title, and it needs to point to the high concept. That's important. A lot of times I see titles and the person will tell me the title and I'll go, oh, wow, is it about this? And they'll go, no. And I'll say, is it about that? And they'll go, no. And I'll say, is it about, and I'll give them my best guesses, what I think that story is about. And then they'll tell me, I'll say, okay, then where did the title come from? And they'll say, well, if you look on page 39, you'll see this scene that is about blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Or it'll be the character's name, and we've had enough of those. Those don't come across as unique anymore. Or it'll be something they came up with that they thought was cool that kind of indirectly references the script. All of those are a problem because when you go to pitch your script to a producer, they're listening for two things. They're listening for your title and your high concept. And why those two are incredibly important is because that's how they're going to sell it to an audience. If you have a great title and a true high concept, then they can sell it in a 30-second spot, right? They can put together a 30-second TV spot. They can put together a 15-second Instagram spot, and they can sell it in that. If you have these two, if they have to tell a long story, well, now we're in a 2-minute trailer, which if you've got a great transformational journey, that can work. But your high concept, this is the major hook of the story in a single sentence. So there's a difference, by the way, between a high concept and a log line. A log line often gives a lot of information. It tells you this character has this problem and they've decided to do this crazy thing, whatever it is, to try to solve the problem, and then the opposition shows up. Or some version of that. There's about 5 different versions of log lines, but basically it comes down to character, what their goal is, what their problem is, who the opposition is, and how they're being shut down, kind of thing. That's a log line. Like if I was going to do the one for The Purge, I would say, here's the log line. A home security, the top home security salesperson, I'm making this up as I go, by the way. The top home security salesperson comes home to find his family has been taken hostage by a gang that is intent to kill them all on the night of the purge. Right? So that's a log line. It tells you who the protagonist is, comes home, finds out that there's a gang who is there to kill his family and him on the night of the purge. He's got to somehow survive that. That's the log line. Here's the hook for the purge. What if, for a 12-hour period, anyone could commit any crime and get away with it? Now, if you think about that, the moment I heard that, before that movie ever came out, I was talking with a producer. They said they were working on it. He told me that hook, and I went, "Oh my God, that's a franchise." I can see a movie. I didn't see the movie, but the second they said it, I could see the movie, a movie, and I could easily see how it could escalate after that and create a franchise, and it did. Right? So there's a difference between a high concept and a log line. This is about selling your story. Okay. Then you need some roles for major actors. And I would be looking at those, especially if you're pitching actors, production companies. There's a lot of actors now with production companies. In some cases, you can get into them easier. And many times they're looking for a role for their actors. So I would have a one-sentence, essentially high concept for that role. What could I say about this character that would instantly hook this actor? And then an engaging transformational journey. This becomes your movie trailer, right? Anytime you've seen a movie trailer, like I was at the theaters the other day, before the movie, there were 10 trailers. That's what's pretty normal now. And almost 7 or 8 of them, I don't know what number it was. It was like 70% in general are just the transformational journey, where you see the whole movie pretty much from start to finish. They don't give you the end, but they do cause you to go on the journey and decide if you want to see the movie. And I've talked with production companies that do movie trailers, and they said this is their most successful model. tell the transformational journey in a way that is interesting and compelling. So you'll need to have a really strong transformational journey. If your movie doesn't have a strong transformational journey, well, that's why we're creating the pitch first, because these allow you now to go back to your script and say, okay, how could I make those roles stronger? How could I make sure this honors the high concept? How could I make sure this transformational journey is amazing? And then be prepared to do any of the 4 pitches. So we have 4 main pitches that you use. When Cheryl and I, my wife and I, were producing partners, we got 35 scripts into major production companies and studios. Those were the very top companies, and we did it using 4 different pitches. So we would go in, and if they said, hey, you've got 10 minutes, I had a pitch for that. I had about a 3 to 5 minute pitch for that. If they said, you've only got 2 minutes with the president of the company, which happened about 4 times. And by the way, one of them, I sold it right there. If they said you only have 2 minutes, I had a 1 minute pitch for that. If you need to leave something behind, you leave essentially your query letter. You need something that's strong here. And if you're going to send query letters to producers, there are plenty of people out there that will naysay about this and tell you they don't work. The reason theirs don't work is because of how they wrote their query letter. They don't know how to do them at the level that we do. I actually interviewed 50 producers on query letters. I laid out 6 different kinds of query letters on the table in front of them. I asked them when I called them if I could do this. They said yes. I laid out 6 different kinds of query letters, and I said, which of these would you automatically throw in the trash, and which would you read? And when they told us which one they would read, which was almost always the same one, it was the one that nobody's doing out there. The ones that were most common, the ones that we see all the time, are the ones that got thrown in the trash instantly. But when they told me which one they liked the best, I sat and talked with them about, what did you like about it? What caused you to want to read it? How could we make it even better? And so that's our model. We have an elevator pitch. This is a 15 to 30-second pitch. This happens, and by the way, please don't trap anybody in an elevator and try to pitch them. This happens when you're making small talk. You're standing in an elevator and you say, so what are you guys working on? And they tell you, and then they ask you, what are you working on? And now you say your 15-second pitch. If it hooks them, great. If it doesn't, then at least you've shown yourself as a pro. You stopped talking after 15 seconds. You said something that kind of fits in the ballpark, and you've elevated your status in their minds. So you need a strong phone pitch. That is, our phone pitches are very simple. We've made it incredibly easy. This is how we got 90% of our projects in. So of the 35 that we got into major productions and production companies and studios, 90% of them were through phone pitches. So we have this part of the model down really, really well. And then right now it's a Zoom pitch, but it's the same if it was an in-person pitch. This would be my 3 to 5 minute long pitch, that if I was on Zoom or if I was in person, that's what I would do. There are people out there that will say, hey, but what about if they ask you all about the script and they want to hear all the details? That only happens when you're somebody coming in. Well, basically, it only happens if you're a pro. So you don't have to worry about that right now. For you, if you haven't already have gotten into those production companies and had the success that you want, I wouldn't be going in with anything longer than a 3-minute pitch. You don't want to take more of their time. What you want is to hook them and have them request the script and then get out of the room while they're still in agreement. They want to see your script. That's important. So the objective is to get the script request, not to tell the entire story. And this is where most of those pitches that you hear out there, it's like most people are trying to somehow tell as much as they can. That's not what sells your script. What you want to do is get to the key things that will cause a producer to say yes. So writing it, make sure your script delivers on the pitch. And let me tell you a story here. I really did make a mistake. It was the first script we ever pitched. I was making phone calls. The first day, everybody I talked to turned me down. I had a logline pitch that was fairly average. And I got to the end of the day, I'd had no success whatsoever. I didn't want to call Cheryl and say, hey, this didn't work. So I made one more call at 7 p.m. And this producer answered the phone and she said, I'm on my way out. Can you make it quick? And I said, okay. So I told her my log line and she listened to it and she goes, oh, that's kind of like a female Godfather movie. Now, at that point, we'd never had a female Godfather movie. There actually were two since then. But I went, yeah. And she goes, oh, great. Okay, send it over. So the next day I got on the phone and I called and talked with 5 producers. And all I said was, I have a female Godfather movie. Would you like to hear about it? And 4 out of the 5 said, yes, send it over. Now, here's my mistake. This is the big mistake. At that point, my pitch had changed. And the script, while it reflected it to a degree, it reflected it to about 40%. The other 60% was off from a female Godfather movie, and I should have gone back and rewritten it. If I would have gone back and rewritten it, I really would have had a chance because then my script would have delivered on the pitch. So this is the thing that a lot of people don't know. When a producer requests your screenplay, right? Let's say you get a script request right now. The reason the producer just requested your script is because they think they loved the pitch and they're positive they can sell it, right? They're not doing it because they want to read another script. They've read hundreds this year. They're doing it because you gave them a pitch that they haven't seen and they're thinking, I can sell this. So now if your script delivers on the pitch, you're in business. But if your script doesn't deliver on the pitch, it's over. And that's what happened for me. We got that script into about 25 production companies. All of them turned it down. 3 or 4 of them said, wow, you need to rewrite the script to match the pitch. And it's like, yeah, they're right. And I never made that mistake again. And this is it. The producer requested it because the pitch sold them. If the script now delivers on that pitch, they'll likely option it, right? So you take the pitch, you write it up, you put it on the wall in front of you, or you put it on something on your desk. You look at it every step of the rewrite. Does my rewrite deliver on this pitch, right? Read it constantly as you're doing that rewrite. Make sure that if you've got a great pitch, that your script is the best possible delivery on that pitch. And if so, now you've got an option and you got a much better chance of having your movie produced. So, third, it's about quality. Make sure your script is great writing. Now, let me tell you a secret. And the reason I say this is a secret is because I've been in about 100 screenwriting groups. And that's where I started before I started interviewing producers. And over and over and over, I hear people talking about formatting and wordsmithing as if that's what will solve your problem. It's not. I have never had a producer, when we got a script into producers, I've never had one single producer talk to me about the formatting or the wordsmithing. Now, when they come back and turn it down, or when they come back and ask for changes, those aren't the changes they asked for. Now, that doesn't mean your formatting doesn't need to be good, but it doesn't need to be great. We used only 4 main keys in Final Draft, and that was all of our formatting. And you know which keys, right? The slug line, the description, the character name over the dialogue, and the dialogue. That's all we used. We didn't use any tricky stuff. We didn't use anything that looked cute. The people that try to put as much formatting into their script as they can, the first thing I tell them before they go to producers is go through and take most of that out. Just bring it down to where it's simple. If a producer has to look at it and think, what does that mean exactly? Or why did they format it that way? Or if they look and go, wow, this person has extra formatting on almost every page, they consider you to be an amateur. Don't waste that time on that. And by the way, the people out there who are pitching formatting like it's the most important thing, they're not in this industry, or they're not successful in this industry. Just don't go that direction. This is 10 times more important that you have depth built in. That means subtext, layers, intrigue, mystery, and a bunch of other things. That your characters aren't just on the surface, that they actually have multiple layers of depth that can be revealed during your story. That you have amazing character. This means there's something unique about them. And by the way, let me just add in unique, and then there's also something universal that we feel like that's me on the screen, right? So that there's emotional range with this character. Again, there's depth. I would say also things like, if you're talking about your lead characters, there's some really cool lines of dialogue and some really cool actions. You want to really focus on your key scenes. This means like your opening scene. I can tell you, this is when we were producing, almost, I'd say out of the 35 scripts that we got in, probably 30 of them, I had the writer go back and rewrite the opening. They had an okay opening in those cases, but they didn't have an opening that was dazzling. And this is what you need. Keep this in mind. This isn't me ranting or anything. I'm going to tell you, having read scripts when we were producing, looking for projects, having worked with writers like crazy, having taken projects into studios and major production companies, my experience was, when a producer looks at your script, by the time they've read the first 3 pages, they've already decided who you are as a writer. So I did this over and over, and sometimes the writers would get upset with me, and I'd say, no, here, your opening scene, I want you to pretend that's the only thing they're going to read, that they're not going to read another word, and they're going to make a choice as to whether they buy this script based on that opening scene. And they're going to decide who you are as a writer based on that opening scene. So I'm telling you that because it's these key scenes. These are the key scenes that need to be great. Your opening, your character introduction. And by the way, your character introductions are not just 4 lines about the character. It's the whole scene when you're talking about your lead characters. You should give, like your protagonist and your antagonist, give each of them their own scene to introduce them, because that's how the actor's going to make their decision. I was at Pierce Brosnan's company. I asked her, how does Pierce make a decision when you give him a script? And she goes, well, first thing I do is I put in one of those, little pointers that points to the page where his character is introduced and where his character ends. And she goes, Half of the time, he stops after the character introduction and throws the script in the trash. She goes, the other time, he reads the character introduction and he reads the ending. And then, if he likes those, he goes back to the beginning and reads the whole script. Now, the reason for that is the character introduction is how they come onto the scene. It's how people see them in the very beginning, right? It's part of why people say, wow, that character's amazing or that actor's amazing. The character ending is what they're left with. So if I was going to say, what are the 3 most important scenes for you? First one, the opening. This sells you. Second, the intro, character intro, sells the actor. Third, the character ending causes the actor to believe that people are going to remember them well. And it doesn't mean that they have to end well. They might end getting killed in a spectacular way, but it's written in a way that people will remember it, and that increases their chance of success. Now, let me give you one other thing here on making sure that this is great writing. Every single page is interesting. Every page. Your objective is not a dull page. And here's where this came from. I was talking with a producer at Paramount in front of an audience of about 40 writers, and I was asking him how he reads a script. And he said something in the midst of it. He's telling me things, and he said, and if I hit anything dull, I just put it down and I'm done. And I said, wait a minute, what do you mean when you said anything dull? And he goes, he says, if I'm reading along and I run into a scene or even a page that is dull, I'm done. And I said, so even if the script is good up until that point, and he goes, yeah, because if there's anything dull in there, I don't want to be involved in it. So he was looking for an excuse to stop writing or stop reading is basically what the situation was. And yeah, it's like, it was pretty easy for him. I said, what percentage of the scripts are that way? What percentage have something dull? And he says, oh, he says probably somewhere between 70 or more. And I was like, wow. And then those are scripts that are getting in at the studio level. It's like, that's astounding. But that was his thing. Now, I'm not saying that's every producer's thing. It's not. There are some producers out there that will commit to reading something and read all the way through it. But you want to know if they don't have an obligation, if somebody important didn't submit this to them, like let's say that you got it in and they've never met you before, but they were interested. This is your rule, not a single dull page. I asked one producer, I said, how do you know if a script is great? And he said, because I get a bladder infection. And I said, I don't understand. What does that mean? And he goes, I forget my bodily functions, and I forget that I have to go to the bathroom. The script is so good. He said, sometimes I'll be reading, it'll be light outside. I'll get to the end and I'll look up and it's dark outside. And I don't know when that happened, right? And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for something to have your script be so interesting that they forget the other things in their lives. They forget other things that are important because your script was that good. Do that, and they'll want to work with you forever. And then if you want confirmation, and this is totally up to you, if you want confirmation, get feedback from high-level writers. And by the way, if you're getting feedback from people around you, here's the first thing I would do. I would look for people who understand what they're looking for, but they are not trying to shut people down. When you're putting a script, especially in an early draft, in front of people, you don't need somebody to make fun of you or say something bad or any of that kind of thing. You need somebody who's basically on your side can point to here's what worked and here's what didn't work and give you helpful feedback. If you're going to high-level writers, I wouldn't hand them a script unless it was already pretty much the best it could be. Like, I encourage people to have 3 different levels of writers they're getting feedback from. The ones in the beginning who are fairly easy and friendly. Sometimes they're the ones that are not quite up to the level you are. The ones that are kind of middling, and then the ones that are going to be more critical, but still aren't trying to shut you down. That's important. Feedback should never, ever shut you down. So that's another way. And there's actually, I just said all of this. But it's like, average writers, good writers, pro writers. I just get the feedback in tiers. Never hand a pro writer something that you would hand an average writer. Be careful about that. And tell them up front, this is my 3rd draft. Probably I'm going to do 5 or 6 or whatever, or 7 or whatever it is. So this average writer doesn't automatically think that this is the perfect version, and they don't spend their time talking about typos and that kind of thing. And then another possibility is to get coverage if you choose. And this usually means you're paying for coverage. And if they give you a recommend, you can use that as you market. Now, most of the coverage sources that we've recommended to our writers have it set up so that you submit the first time, they'll give you the coverage. If you make the changes, you can get back in for 50%. So let's say the first time you didn't get a recommend, you didn't get a consider, it was a pass, but you made all of the changes, you can come back to try to get a recommend. This is worthwhile when you market, because if you can say you have a recommend on coverage and it's true, the producer now knows that somebody else has vetted this script and they consider it to be in the top 5%. So that it's worth it to get that. It makes it easier to get a producer to say yes and to go with you. Now, targeting producers. The primary market for your script, and it depends on the script really. If you have a script that goes to studios, of course, producers with a deal with a studio is the best possible market. In order to get that, usually you have to have an agent. And then producers that have or can get funding. This may be, there are indie producers out there that can get funding. I know 20 of them. There are bigger producers that can easily get funding. If it's an indie producer or a smaller producer that has access to funding, then you can probably get in the door. And then the third version are producers who can access the other producers, these two with A and B. So these are smaller producers. This is what Cheryl and I were. We were smaller producers who had access to producers with a deal with the studio. And that's what we consistently went to. 35 scripts, we got into those doors. So, we as a producer, we would option the script. We would then work with the writer to make sure it was the best it could be, and then take it to the studio or to major production companies who had a deal with the studio. Now, in today's market, there's another way to think about it. There are a lot of producers who have a deal with Netflix or with one of the other streamers. And you can just go look that up, go into IMDb Pro, put in Netflix, go look at Netflix and see how many producers they're connected with and which ones are in your genre. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do that. But here's that. What you want to do before you market is to generate a producer list. And we do that by going to IMDb Pro. I'll show you that in a second. We match the genre and the budget range. So if, for instance, let's say you have a thriller uh, that is in the $15 to $30 million range. So we would go into IMDb Pro and do a search to look that up. And it would give us a list of the thrillers that are in that range, right? We'd go look those up, find the producers connected with them, and go from there. And I'll just show you some quick stuff on IMDb Pro so that you can just see how this works. Just a second here. So this is IMDb Pro. It's a paid subscription. On IMDb, you can look up movies, but you don't get contact information and those kinds of things. And there's a lot of information that the industry uses that you don't get. But let me just show you here. I'm doing a search right now, and here's the list of movies. There's 20 million movies that have been made. And this is movies, TV series, all those kinds of things. But in general, what you do is you go over here, you type in what you want. You know, I'm looking for a movie. You type in whatever the genre is. It gives you a list of genres. You know, you go down, give it some production information. No, I don't need that, actually. Let's go here. Box office, maybe I'm looking for a certain budget range. And it will bring it down. Like, let's say I was going for thrillers that are low budget or something like that. It would bring it down probably 5,000 or something. But I just want to show you through a couple of things. Here's Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice just came out. I recommend it. I didn't love the first Beetlejuice, but this one was a lot of fun. It was funny. It was absolutely worth going to see in the theater. So I just want to show you just a couple of things. So first, when you get here, Beetlejuice, it's going to give you some information. On the left-hand side, it'll tell you who the contacts are. Production company is Plan B. That's Brad Pitt's production company. And the way you find producers is you go over here to filmmakers. And by the way, all of this information is available in the class I'm going to talk about in just a minute. You go to filmmakers, go down, here's a list of the producers. So if I'm doing this, what I do is I go to the bottom of this list, right? And I'm down here looking at this. If you go to the very top, usually it's listed in the pecking order. At the very top is Tim Burton here. And love that picture. So, and most of these people at the top are going to be the most important. They're going to be the ones that are the most difficult to get, you know, contact information on. By the way, I interviewed this guy, Seth Graham-Smith, at one point. It was a fun interview. He's an excellent writer and producer. But let's go click on here. Mark. So see, here's Mark. It'll give you information about him. You can find out their credits. But over here, this is Mark's company, IP Management. And it has his phone number right there, excuse me. And then it has an email address right here. I'm doing really good on this today. Let's try it again. So there's his contact information for you to get a hold of him. And then, of course, you want to be really smart when you do that. You only want to interact with him in a way that's professional, that follows all the things that we've said. Now, if you understand everything we've just said here, you now have a pretty good idea of at least how to get to people. I will tell you, probably 50% of the people listed, the producers listed, have a phone number and in some cases a physical address. Probably about 30% have an email address. Don't worry about the ones you can't contact. All you got to do is find the ones you can. Go to your genre, go to your budget range. If there's 3,000 thrillers or whatever it is, you're going to be able to find plenty of producers to interact with. So, and you make up a producer list, and then you go after them in a positive and healthy way, of course. Now, so strategies to get your script read. The first one, and this is, if you're new to this industry, you got to master this. There are, once you're in the industry, once you're A-list, I was talking with one writer who was A-list, and I said, in front of an audience of writers, and I said, okay, so how do you get your script in the door? And he goes, he says, I just put out the word. And I said, what does that mean? And he goes, I send out a couple of emails. I tell some people I'm interested, and all of a sudden I have agents calling me. And I was like, okay, that's the way it is at A-list. I said, all right, when you were trying to break in, how did you get your script in the door? And then he told me what sounded like a difficult story where a lot of people weren't looking at stuff. A lot of people weren't willing to even look at his query letter and all of that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, you take any industry. If you're trying to break in and say, hey, I want you to spend millions of dollars on me, they're going to do that on the people that they at least have some kind of connection with. So you got to get that connection. You got to create that relationship. So the way you do it is through campaigns, right? And your campaign could be your query letter campaign. Like we've had lots of writers who have sent out 300 query letters to producers that were in their genre, in their budget range. And out of the 300 query letters, they might get, 20 to 30 script requests. And out of that, they end up with 1 or 2 producers who want to make a deal. We have had that happen off of query letters. The people who tell you that query letters don't work, they're usually, when I read their query letter, by the way, the moment I start reading it, I can tell why it didn't work. So that's part of the problem. But you can do query letters as emails or as letters. It's just you need to assume up front on query letters, you're going to get a 3 to 5% response. So you send out 100, you're going to get 3 to 5 script requests if you've got a good query letter. That's typical. That doesn't mean anything bad. You didn't spend a penny to do that. That's why it's worthwhile. Next version is the phone calls. And again, this is what Cheryl and I did. We've found phone calls to be very successful for us. You just have to first you have to have a real good phone pitch, not a long one. You need to be able to get to the point. You need to be able to hook them immediately. You need to know what you're doing. You answer whatever questions, and they'll request it. We had about a 60 to 70% success rate when we were going out to them. But I tell most people probably assume about 20 to 25 if they've never heard of you. And that means, you know what, if 1 out of 4 say yes, as long as you keep making calls every day, you know what, inside of a month, you're going to have your script into 25 to 30 producers and something will happen for you. Social media, there are writers, there are producers, there are people in the industry that are on Twitter, don't do it on Facebook. That usually doesn't work unless you've connected with them someplace. But on, TikTok or Instagram or those kinds of things that you can do things with. Also, LinkedIn is a pretty good place to be able to connect with producers. Consider that. And then there are Zoom meetings. And most of the ones that I'm seeing are paid Zoom meetings where you are making a deal with somebody who sets you up. A couple of companies that do that, Roadmap Writers and Stage 32. They both set up Zoom meetings for people with producers. You can choose your producers. You pay them whatever fee they ask on that. If you know what you're doing and you're good, you've got your pitch down, you know how to respond to their questions, you're going to be a star there. So be just thinking about that. Now, networking is what happens after you're breaking into the industry, as you're making things happen. So in our campaigns up here, by the way, what we're trying to do is build a network of producers who are willing to consistently look at your projects. That's again what Cheryl and I did. We came from the world of corporate training where we were working with about 150 major corporations. We were doing training for them. So we knew how to get in these doors and how to interact. Basically, what we did was we did phone calls with high quality projects. And then I came back to them again next month with another project, and next month with another, and the next month with another. By the time we'd gotten 4 projects into them, they knew us, and they now were in our network. So that's the objective. Then there's the 6 degrees of separation. Who do you know who knows an industry player? Now this will surprise you. You just have to start asking. I was in Springfield, Illinois, and I just done a presentation on how this works. So I'm sitting at this dinner, and I'm talking to my mother-in-law and one of her relatives. And I said something about this, and she goes, "Oh, you work in the movie business?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Yeah, my son is he works in one of those studios." And it turned out he was somebody that we ended up contacting who got our script read. And I didn't mean to have that happen. It was just one of those things where I just happened to mention it in front of her, and that was the response. We had one writer who I told that story to, and he said, "All right, I'm going to send out to all my friends." So he sent out to about 35 of his friends, including, he was like in his 60s, including some people he went to college with. And he ended up getting 4 meetings out of it. And I'm talking 4 like serious meetings with producers that came from somebody that he didn't know had a friend in the industry. Pretty interesting. So what you don't want, and this is really important. When you're marketing, the real key to marketing, there's a couple of things. The first one is that you've got a great pitch, right? Second one is that your script pays that off. And then the third one is that you keep marketing. So what you don't want when you're marketing is to be stalling out because you don't know what to do next. And it's not just that. Let's just go further. But a lot of times people they'll have a plan that includes one step, and they haven't thought beyond that. And so they do that, and then nothing happens, and they go, "Oh, it didn't work." And it's like, well, they only took 1/20th of what we recommend people do. And the reason they stalled out in that case is they just didn't know. The other is shutting down because of misinterpreting producer responses. I have had so many people say the producer rejected me. And then I'd go, "How?" And they'd say they sent me back this notice that they said they looked at my script and it's not for them. And so they stopped. And I'm like, "No, congratulations, you got your script in the door." That producer, I would read the thing. It'd be like, they'd say, "Thank you so much for sending your script. We're sorry, it's just not for us, but we'd be willing to look at projects from you in the future." And I'd be going, "Wow, congratulations. That's excellent. You got a producer response that said they want to see stuff from you in the future. Good job. Move forward. Don't shut down over that. They misinterpreted it." They were so afraid of this thing called rejection, which, by the way, doesn't actually exist. Now, before we go further, I gotta clear this up, because sometimes people tell me, I tell them that it doesn't exist. There isn't any rejection in this industry. That's not true. But there's all kinds of people out there who are pitching this sad story about how they got rejected by everybody, and then their movie got made by somebody else and everybody else was wrong. Listen, the way it really is in this industry is you market until you get 20 or 30 producers to request it. They're looking at their own internal structure and making a decision. They have two decisions. The first one is, do they like your pitch and your script? And the second is, can they get it made? And sometimes that second one stops them from being able to move forward. Every major movie that I've ever thought was great, I have talked with a producer that turned down that script. I really, I was in the office of this one producer who turned down Memento. And the only reason I knew about it was because he had a letter on the wall from one of the writers of Memento where he had sent back and said, I love this script. I'm just sorry I can't make it. And that was Christopher Nolan, by the way, or Christopher Nolan and his brother were the writers and producers or directors on that. But he had that letter framed. And so I asked him about it, and he said, he says, I really wanted to, but we just couldn't. He said, it was in a slightly different genre than we work in. I didn't know how to market it exactly. We tried and we couldn't figure it out, so we had to pass on it. Now, that doesn't mean they rejected the Nolan brothers. That means that it just didn't fit for them. So the vast majority of when people tell me that a producer rejected them, 98% of the time it's not true. 98% of the time it wasn't a fit. They couldn't figure out how to do it. Something changed in their office. I have called producers before and said, hey, I had a project I want to run by you. And I remember this specific one. The guy says, Hal, if you say anything else today, I have to say no. I had not said a word about the project, right? Now, some people would say that's rejection. I didn't think so. I said, everything okay? And he goes, no. He says, last night at midnight, my assistant quit. And he said, we were working late. We have this production coming up. I asked her to stay another hour and she quit. And he says, I can't find anything. He says, I don't know where anything is. He says, just right now is not the time. And I said, hey, I'm sorry, man. I know what that's like. I've had that happen before. How about if I call you back in 15 days? And he goes, yeah, that would be great. I called back in 15 days. He requested the script and at least read it. But I could have taken it as a rejection, but it just doesn't make sense. So if you're thinking it's all about avoiding rejection, just how about if you just went, this thing of rejection doesn't matter. Once I get my writers past that, they're no longer living in fear. They're no longer worried, oh my God, what if they reject me? Instead, they're just like, all right, let's see if we can find the right producer for this project. And if we do, great. And if not, well, I'll keep going and looking for other producers. And then this one, this is something you don't want. Saying the wrong thing because you just didn't know what to say. And this one, there's just, I can absolutely 100% understand this fear. I really can. Anytime I'm going into anything new, there are times when things like that are going to happen. So we have an easy solution to this. I'll show you in just a second. And then finally, the last one, going into marketing block because of any of the above. Now, this is something I started noticing about 10 years ago when we took the first group to market. A whole bunch of them shut down in the first 2 or 3 days. First time anybody gave them a pass. The first time somebody said no to their script or whatever, they would just shut down. And they didn't know what to do next. They misinterpreted it. They thought it meant something bad about them. They didn't know what to say, right? And so they just shut down, and that was marketing block. It's the equivalent of writer's block. If you're marketing, your job is to just keep marketing every day, no matter what happens, until you get enough producers to look at your script for you to be able to move forward and make things happen. So our solution to this is we put together a problem strategy list. So what this is is it basically has the list of all the problems that people have had in these things. And we know because I've taken 30 some odd groups to market for 30 days, and we made a list of every problem that they come up against. And then we created a strategy for that our writers have used to get in the door. So that's the first thing. And I'll tell you about how to get that in a minute. Now, what's possible for you? This one, you do this, you're a star in this industry. And I want you to know something. Every producer in this industry pitches, and most of them listen to pitches. So pitching is something they respect if you know what you're doing, right? And this is, I didn't understand this probably for the first year or two of interviewing producers. And one day I got to a point and a producer said, "Oh, that's not how I'd pitch that." And I said, "How would you pitch it?" And then he told me back a pitch. This is in front of a live audience. He told me back a pitch that was better than mine. And I was like, "Wow, man, you're really good at this." And he goes, "Well, that's what I do. I pitch." And I said, that's what you do?" And he goes, "That's what every producer does. They pitch, right? Let's say you get your script into a producer and they read it and they love it and they come back to you and they say, "Yes, let's do this," and give you an option agreement. The next thing that's going to happen is they're going to start pitching. They're going to start pitching possible producer partners. They're going to start pitching the studio. They're going to start pitching funding sources. They'll pitch directors, right? That's what they do. When I first started working in this industry, I went to work for 2 producers. On one of them, I was the direct assistant. And every time we had a project, he would call me into the office and we would put together, I'd have to read the script that night. Next morning, he'd call me in and we would put together a pitch for it. And then we'd get on the phone. I'd make all the phone calls. I'd call up and say, "Hi, this is Hal over at blah, blah, blah's office. I have Gary on the line to talk with you." And now whoever I was calling would then listen. Gary would get on and he would do a 30-second pitch, and then he'd stop talking. And they'd either request it or they'd say no. And if they said no, he'd say, "Okay, great, I'll get back to you with the next project. Bye." And then we're done. And if they said yes, then he'd say, "Okay, I got Hal on the line. He'll take care of you. We'll send it over." And then I'd stay on the line and make sure I have their contact information and all that kind of thing. And that's the way it worked. I listened to hundreds of those pitches. So every producer in this industry has gone through this, and now you get to master pitching. And if you do that, you're going to get in the door any place you want to go. Second, they're going to love you. So, and at that point, you'll master getting scripts into producers because of that, once you've got that. And then you'll go from writing to pitching to making deals. And this should be the natural progression. You write a script knowing that your whole purpose is to ultimately end up with a deal, an option, or selling the script or whatever it takes to get it produced, right? So you should naturally go from writing to pitching to making deals. That's where the whole thing goes. And then this is the other thing that's possible. Showing that you're a pro with every interaction you have with producers, agents, and managers. And this happened for us, I think, by the 3rd time we'd gone out. But see, back then, I didn't know all the things that you're about to know. So we were doing it trial and error. But by the 3rd time we went out to producers with a project, we found out how it works. We'd been in enough offices. We'd been talking with them enough. I had enough experience back here to be able to put together pitches that had them see us as pros. So even if they turn you down, if you're coming in with a strong enough pitch and you're good, they're going to want to work with you in the future. We had one producer that we made a deal with at one point, and he I was at an event and he introduces me to this other producer and he says, this is Hal and Cheryl. He goes, he says, I've been wanting to work with them for so long. I must have heard 15 pitches. And I said, 17. He goes, yeah, 17 pitches. I must have heard 17 pitches from them. The whole time I've been thinking we should work together. We just finally found the right project. And he had optioned our 17th project that we brought to him. But to my surprise, he had been thinking about working with us the whole time because we had acted as pros. So, that's where you want to be. Now, let me just walk you through a program that is designed to give you everything you need to be successful at this. This is our Getting Scripts to Power Players. I've got 2 bonuses at the end, and I'll give you a special over here. But I've got 2 cool bonuses that we just added. So this program, it's a 30-day program. You come in with a project, whatever project you want to market. And it starts with, we're going to give you the model that came from the classes where we actually took people to market. We only do those inside our alumni now. But what we had in almost every time we took people to market, we had 1 or 2 people that got 50 script requests. So I went back and I interviewed those people because they did something different than the ones who got 10 script requests, right? So we went back and we interviewed them and we found out exactly what they did that made them so much more successful than everybody else. So you'll learn that on day 1. Then this is critically important, what do managers and producers need? Because when you know what they need, really, truly, then when you're sitting across from them, you can present to that need. You can interact with what they need instead of just what's going on inside you. When we understood this, it changed everything for us. Up until that point, we were just pitching our project. Once we understood this, they started asking us what we wanted. And I had 3 or 4 conversations by the 4th script that we were pitching, where producers were saying, well, maybe we should talk with you about something that we're working on. And for the first time, I had a producer pitching me. It was pretty weird, but it was because I was talking with them about what they needed and how they could get that. Third, then it's what we call the 10 components of marketability. And this is how you tell something can sell. And again, this came from about 30 interviews I did with producers where I kept asking them, how do you know if something can sell? And what are you looking at? And what's your criteria? And those kinds of things, because I ask questions like that. And, surprisingly enough, they all answered. They were happy to talk with somebody who understood their business. And then lesson number 4, you're going to look at your own script for the 10 most interesting things. A lot of times people when they're pitching, they're talking about character and drama, not the things that are going to be most interesting in a trailer. So you need to be able to figure out what makes your project incredibly interesting to an audience. Number 5, then it's about how do you use hooks to create pitches? And hooks, by the way, are the most important part of your pitch. If you can say something in 1 sentence and get the producer to go, oh my God, tell me about that, right? If you can do that, instead of the producer sitting back and going, no, I'm sorry, it's just not for us, right? There's a huge difference between those two. When you have a producer leaning forward because you hooked them, 2 things are happening right that moment. First thing is they are engaged and they want to know more. The second is they're considering you to be a pro. You just said something that got their interest and has them wondering, and they're thinking, wow, if you can do that with your script, if we can do that when we pitch this project, wow, that's amazing. That's what they need. Then we go to first set of pitches. We have 4 main pitches in here: the high concept pitch and the elevator pitch. These are the ones you do in 30 seconds, right? And in fact, sometimes my high concept pitches are 15 seconds. It makes it so much easier for you as a writer. If you can just say 1 or 2 sentences and the producer is requesting your script, that is so much better than having to sit there and tell a big long story while they're looking like they're going to fall asleep. From there, then it's advanced query letters. We have a model that goes way beyond the other models that are out there. Again, it came straight from me interviewing a whole bunch of producers about what would cause them to request a script from a query letter, and which query letters would they even look at. Most query letters, especially the models that are out there, are designed to tell the whole story, and it causes producers to go away. So don't do that. And then how to be a star at Pitch Fest, and this is also for Zoom meetings. This is how do you tell a 3-minute pitch? How do you interact with them in a way that doesn't just get 1 script request, but gets 2 or 3? Because you were able to pitch a couple of different projects during that 5-minute period of time. Lesson number 9 is phone pitches without pain. And this we're masters at. Our phone pitches are so easy to do, and they are so powerful. There are some very important things that you will learn here, that once you make that one change, phone pitches are easy. Do it the other way, the way everybody else does, and phone pitches are a battle trying to keep the person on the phone. That's not what you want. Then how to target your market. I showed you a little bit of that today. When we get to that in the class, I will give you a video walking you through exactly the steps you take in order to find who are the producers you need to go to and to make sure you get the contact information that you need. 11 is then how to network from anywhere in the world. Most of our people that are making deals are outside of Los Angeles. And by the way, we have people from Australia who have made deals. We have a guy in South Africa who got 100 script requests for 1 script, and he ended up getting a manager off of another one, a manager here in Los Angeles. So that's pretty good from South Africa. You can do it from anywhere. And then finally, how do you put your marketing campaigns into action? Now, this class begins on October 21st. Let me give you a special, and then I'll tell you the 2 bonuses. The normal price on it is $199. You've got about a month or so that gives you time to work on your script, get it ready, and then come in this class and you will build all of your pitches and you will put together your strategies and take action. Normal price is $199. For the first 10 people, you can get in at $97. That saves you more than $100. It's less than half price. It's the only time we're going to offer it at this price. You just go to this link, bit.ly, bit.ly/power players class. Notice the S right there. Power players class. No caps, no spaces, no dashes. Again, bit.ly, bit.ly/power players class. Now, let me show you the bonuses because I'm really excited about these. Again, first 10 get in at $97. I think after that, it bumps up to $129. If you get in at the $129 price, I promise you it's still worth it. This will save you years of trying to figure out this market. We've done more interviews than you can imagine. We've tested this so many different ways. Learn how to do it once and you can use it on every script you write from now on. But here's our bonuses. So bonus number 1 is the problem strategy list, right? And this is the list. First, it's a list of all the problems that people have when they call producers. Like, let's say you call a producer and the producer says, "What's your budget on that?" There are a lot of writers who have shut down at that point or been afraid or something like that. We have an incredibly simple solution that once you understand it, you'll be completely confident. We have a list of all the questions producers ask. We have a list of all the things that could go wrong when you're marketing or trying to pitch, and we have a strategy for each one. So once you have this list, what I'm going to recommend is you just partner up with somebody and you guys practice it back and forth. I'll give you the steps on how to do that so that it's easy for you. By the time you've practiced a couple of times, this will be something that if a producer tries to stop you with any problem, you instantly know what to say and how to say it. It'll change your life when it comes to pitching. Here's the second thing. And we just created these. We have a team every person there has been an option screenwriter or a produced screenwriter, but they also are great at AI. So we created AI prompts for creating your high concept. You just load in certain information about your project, and it will come back with 5 different possible versions of a high concept. It'll come back and give you elevator pitches within 1 minute. We have an AI prompt and these are high quality AI prompts. I tried 15 different versions before we got the one that we have now. For our advanced query letters, you load it up. It will then give you a query letter back that works, that is formatted properly, that has hooks and is designed to be interesting. And then it will give you a whole series of other ways that you could possibly make it more interesting. This makes a tremendous difference. Most people spend days or weeks trying to figure out their query letter. What if you could have it in 1 minute and then edit it from there and work with it until it says exactly what you want it to say and how you want it to say, but it's already designed for success from the beginning. Then we have the Zoom pitch. How do you do a Zoom pitch? Again, you are giving the AI certain information. We'll tell you exactly what it is. I'll have a video of this for you so that you can see me demonstrating every bit of it. And then finally, the painless phone pitches. And the AI, again, you're going to put in certain information about your project. The AI will then come back and give you pitches that can work on the phone. So all of this gives you something that in about 10 minutes, you actually can save yourself the problems that most people never recover from. Right? And what this gives you is a list of all the possible things that could happen, along with a strategy that will make it work for you. So both of these together, you'll be the first group to get all of this, but both of these together can change your life. When it comes to pitching producers, you are the most competent person in the room once you've learned all of this. So, if you want to be great at pitching, come join us. Again, all you do is go down, write this link down, bit.ly/power players class. Put that in your browser where you normally put a web address, click return, and come join us. The first 10 get the special of 97. Everybody after that is at 129 for the next week or so. But the first 10 get 97. So if this is something that you want to master all of these things, jump in, and ask yourself this. What if you knew all of this? What if you had solutions to all of those, any problem that could possibly happen? What kind of a difference would that make for you when you start interacting with producers? How much more professional will you be? And what if you're able to create pitches in just a matter of minutes? And then if you decide to rewrite them, or if you are in the middle of a pitch meeting and you pitch it in a different way, what if you could just come back, plug it in, and it now gives you the new version of the pitch, and you've got it, right? Master these 4 pitches, and anybody you talk to in this industry, you have a chance with. So again, all you got to do, use this link, bit.ly/power players class. And come in and master this. This is one of the most important parts of being a writer. It's the second part. You got writing is incredibly important, having a great script. And then there's this second part, which is you being able to pitch and being amazing at it. If you can get to that level, you really do have a chance at success in this industry. So I'm looking forward to hearing about your success stories and knowing that this has made a big difference for you. Listen, this is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the absolute best with your writing. Good talking with you all. Bye-bye, everyone.